This is the Clutch Report, and I am your host, Jamal Bethia. Thank you for coming in and joining me again. Like, comment, and subscribe if you're having a hell of a time. Like, comment, and subscribe if you're having a hell of a time. So look, before I got clarity about doing a sports podcast, I had a mindset podcast. I had a thinking podcast, just simply called The Jamal Bethia Show. And during that time, I had the honor of really interviewing some amazing people. And down the line, I'll probably do the Clutch Report special edition and still have some of those because that's still near and dear to my heart. One interview I'm going to show you today is a gentleman named Michael Sartain. This is a millionaire. This is a guy that has over 130,000 subscribers on YouTube. He has like 74 million views on his channels, right? This is a guy that's literally worked, owned, and operated nightclubs. This is a guy that currently has a men's group called Men of Action, where in that group, he teaches men how to really be men, how to go get what you want, how to get out of your own way in your mindset, how to wake up early, how to stop overanalyzing, how to put yourself out there, how to be really a man. And it's awesome. I mean, it's tens of thousands of men have come through this program, and they've come out better on the other side. How to be better around women, right? How to negotiate yourself, how to prove your worth in this world. And I love it. I mean, I want to join the group myself, but I thought this would be a great interview for you guys. So I'm telling you now, sit back, get your popcorn, get your juice or your thought juice, if you watch Flossie Carter like I do, and really take in some of what he says in this interview. He dropped so many nuggets. Like before I even showed it to you guys, I watched it again so I could write some things down. But seriously, sit back and enjoy this interview. This is Jamal Bethia interviewing Michael Sartain.
All right. So we have a really good interview for you today. Really, really good interview. This gentleman actually set out time to meet with me twice. This is actually the second time. Got some things correct this time. Gentleman by the name of Michael Sartain. He spent some time in the military. Currently, he is a coach for men, really motivating them to be their best version of themselves. I mean, I could use that myself. You know what I mean? So first of all, I just want to say, hi, Mr. Sartain. How you doing today?
Great. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed by me. I really appreciate your time.
Sure.
Here on the Jamal Bethia Show, we lean fully into education, business, and inspiration. And I know you have plenty to say on those topics. I know you have a large following on YouTube. I definitely want to get some pointers on that. But for starters, let's just talk about you spent some time in the military, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. How long were you in the military?
7 years and 7 days.
7 years and 7 days. 7 days is interesting. You counted. Okay. All right.
We all counted.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just talk about your time in the service.
It was a situation where it was like, man, I was eating poorly. I was in my early 20s, and I remember I was working at a strip club in Austin, Texas, on Congress Avenue. The club is called Red Rose now. It used to be called Expose. And I remember I'd eat Whataburger every day, and I would still go to the gym. I was taking I don't know if you remember Rip Fueled and Hydroxycut, like these fucking like super pumped up, like they're illegal now.
Right, exactly.
Pre-workouts. And so I'd go to the gym every day, and I'd go to the strip club every day. And I was dating this girl was really hot, but it was like my life was blah. It was very blah. I was probably making 45,000 a year cash in 1999, 2000. That was good money. That was actually really good money, especially cash, right?
Right.
And so and at one point I had two jobs. I was working there, and I was also working at a what's it called? A nightclub called Amazon Shot Bar, or it's a bar on 6th Street. And when I was there, I remember I was just like laying on my couch, on my front of my face. I was watching the Mavericks, and I was just like, because I paid for like NBA League Pass or whatever. And I looked, and 9/11 happened. And I saw 9/11 happen when I was at the strip club one morning, and I went there. And it's so funny because there's these weird there's this thing called the Mandela effect, where people remember things happening that never happened. I remember seeing the towers come down live, but I didn't see them live. I know for a fact that when I got to work, it was already 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So the towers had come down way before, but in my mind, I thought I saw them.
Right.
And I just remember just being like, I had some other friends who were strip club DJs, and they'd had that job for 25 years, and they put their kids through college, and they were fat as fuck. And I was just like, man, I don't want this as a future for me. I really don't want this. And I just like, no one in my family's ever joined the military. I didn't ask my parents. I didn't ask anybody about it. I just went to a recruiter at Adobe Mall in Austin, Texas. It's on the southwest side of UT Austin.
Okay.
And I went to a Marine Corps recruiter and I said, I want to join the Marine Corps. I have a a bachelor's degree in business and information systems. Can I join? And they're like, well, 9/11 happened. Like, we don't have any spots in the Marine Corps. Like, there's no officer slots. You would have to join enlisted. And I was like, I'm 23. I still got my new knees and back then. Maybe I could have done it.
Right.
But then I go next door. Literally next door is the Air Force recruiting office. And I go there and I was like, hey man, listen, I have a degree in information systems. I basically build websites and databases, whatever. I'd like to come and join, and I'd like to do intel. I read a lot of Jack Ryan, Tom Grisham.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I read a lot of Jack Ryan novels, and I was like, okay, yeah, I want to try that. So I go over there. They're like, yeah, we'll take you to be an intel officer for sure. The process takes over a year. They lose my medical records. I go all the way to Fort Sam Houston to MEPS, and I have, they take my medical in processing, blah, blah, blah. I have to go get my medical records done again. My recruiter doesn't believe in me. It's pretty clear. He likes me, but he's like, this guy isn't serious, because I was working at a strip club at the time. He didn't take me serious. I know he didn't. I liked the guy. We'd actually hang out, other times. I think he was a really good recruiter. He's a good salesman, but I was ready to join. I wanted to join more than he wanted me to join. And most recruiters are recruiting enlisted members, and they're having to convince enlisted members. Being an officer in the military is a really good deal. You don't have to do much convincing. If you want to be an officer in the military, you kind of made up your mind. It doesn't take, there's very few people that were just like, I had a great 9 to 5 and I just decided one day I want to become an artillery officer. You want to become an artillery officer or drive a tank or fly a jet because that's what you want to do. And so I was the only officer candidate that he had, I think, at the time. And then I took the AFOQT and I aced it. I did really well. He was stunned. And then at that point, he came to me, and I remember the look on his face changing. And I think this was the first point where I thought he understood that I was serious, that I was going to give all this up, and I was going to go, because he came. It was so funny. My recruiter, I've never told this story before. My recruiter comes into the office, or he comes into the strip club. He's drinking a beer, and and then it was literally in the strip club I signed the paperwork to join the military, and he was like really proud. Like, honestly, I don't think he believed. I honestly believe they lost my medical records on purpose. If you were to tell me, hand to God, I believe they had a certain number of recruits, and they needed to, because dude, you're signing your life away for a certain amount of time. If you sign on as a line officer, for those of you who don't know, if you sign on for a line officer, depending on what your commission and your job is, in the U.S. Air Force, it's a 4-year commitment. I believe there's some other commitments that you can do in the Guard or in the Army or something that are 2 years. But for us, it was a 4-year commitment. If you want to be a pilot, it's an 11-year commitment minimum. And if you want to be a navigator, it was a 7-year commitment. I was not interested in being a pilot. They asked me if I want to be a pilot. I was not interested in spending 11 years in the U.S. military. I knew I was going to do one tour and then I was going to be done. I just wanted to be a part of this whole thing. And I really enjoyed my freedom. So I joined. I remember on going to Fort Sam Houston on the it would have been Fort Sam Houston on like the 18th of, I went to Fort Sam Houston on the 21st of February, 2004. And that night, after leaving Fort Sam Houston and swearing into the military, I went and worked at Sugar's Cabaret as a DJ in Austin, Texas. So I'm probably the only person in history who's done this, where I was sworn in as a U.S. military member and then went and was a DJ at a strip club. I'm pretty sure no one else has ever done that in history.
That's
so
probably rare.
I worked one shift as a strip club DJ. Then I left there the next day, packed my stuff, and then I drove to Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. And I remember just the whole time never being nervous, like just absolutely certain that this is what I wanted to do. Like not the slightest bit of regret. I drove my 4Runner out there, and then I spent 14 weeks at officer training school, OTS, at Montgomery Air Force Base, Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery. Yes. Montgomery, Alabama, which is in the hood, by the way. And then I got out, and that's when I kind of came to the realization that these people that I was working with were way more accountable and way more sharp than the people I was used to working with in nightlife. but they were also not very cool. Like they were super, like they had being not cool, like down to a science. Like they were very much go to bed at 8:30 p.m. They married the first woman they had sex with at 18. They were all
Right.
very, very square, like extremely square. A lot of them were divorced by the time they were, 30, 32 because they married the wrong woman. A lot of them had eating problems where they would just get fat. Like it was, I saw a lot of it was a really interesting dichotomy. So when I joined the military, this is probably the first time I remember I did a pre-brief for my instructor upgrade. This would have been 2005. And so in order to become an instructor, you have to go through and you have to give all these speeches. So on each part of the aircraft, so pneumatics, landing gear, electronics, the fuel lines, the engine, etc. And I gave my first pre-brief on the landing gear, and I had no idea what I was talking about, and it was so embarrassing. All the other navigators were in the room, and they just looked so disappointed at me. And that was the moment that it all clicked, and I started studying for things for 12 hours a day. In fact, if people remarked before, the first time I met Destiny, we did a debate. It was me and Rolo versus Destiny and Sneeko. And in general, I'm not saying Destiny didn't have some great points, but in general, most people think I won that debate. And he was stunned. And me and Destiny actually became friends afterwards because I know he's done some really crazy, controversial shit that I don't agree with. But we became kind of friends afterwards. We exchanged numbers and talked every once in a while. But the reason why I was so out-researched, I had out-researched Destiny so much, was because of what happened to me in the military. Because I had been embarrassed, and I had made up my mind from this point forward, I'm never going to get caught flat-footed having a debate with somebody. I don't know if you remember when Jasmine Jafar came on Fresh and Fit when I was on there. That was the first time I met Jasmine, and she was bringing up stat after stat after stat, and that Myron there's no way, because we weren't using ChatGPT at the time. There's no way Myron to go out and counter the stats that Jasmine had at the moment. And so I was like, okay, if I have Jasmine on my show, I'm going to do 20 hours of research. I'm going to out-research Jasmine. I'm not going to let Jasmine embarrass me by out-researching me. And so that probably came from being in the military. But this is probably the most important thing I learned in the military, was the difference between good leadership and bad leadership. Like I had two female squadron commanders when I was at Robbins Air Force Base. And one of them, she was a stud. This woman was awesome. Like we loved her. And she was so much of a stud that she got promoted to full bird colonel. She was a great flyer. She was a great leader. She wasn't passive aggressive, and she didn't try to act like a dude because she was in charge of us. But she was fucking mean. Like if you went the wrong way. But she also maintained her, like she was in really good shape, and she was also what's the word I'm looking for? She's also a really great pilot. A lot of times the lieutenant colonel, once you make lieutenant colonel, you're flying less than once a month, and your proficiencies in the aircraft start to fall apart. The most you're going to fly is a senior captain, and then or like a brand new major. That's the most you're going to fly. Actually, that's not true. Probably second lieutenant, you're going to fly more than any, because you're going to do every single training mission you're riding co-pilot.
Right, because your skills aren't fresh at that point.
Right, but there's a saying in the Air Force: there's nothing in the world like being a first lieutenant on flight status, because when you're a first lieutenant, and by the way, this goes for helicopters too. You're going to, because of the way the training is set up, first lieutenants fly like all the time. It takes 2 years to become a first lieutenant, and so I remember being a first lieutenant on flight status and flying every other day. And then when I made captain and I was at McConnell, I was lucky to fly once a month. Like I just remember, there's this point where you're just train, and then you become basically a middle manager. And that was kind of the point where I wanted to get out, because I was like, I had friends. I was maybe a year and a half away from being eligible to be promoted to major, and I would talk to my friends who were majors, and I would be like, so what, how often do you get to deploy, whatever? And it was almost like if you're a major and you're out deploying on flight status, like a flight deployment, you didn't have like an executive deployment. It was almost like seen as a bad sign. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I just joined this to fly. I did not join this so that I could, sit there and do paperwork all day. So probably so around 2009, I do a deployment to the Middle East. This is my third deployment, and I was the planner for all KC-135 tankers. I was the mission planner for all the tankers in the area. Like this is Afghanistan and Iraq. And so the reason why is tankers have to have one mission planner, because tanker missions, the part of the tanker mission is there has to be a KC-135 flying over Iraq and Afghanistan 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, always, because in case there's an emergency and there's a jet that needs to get flown out of country, like a a civilian jet, or not civilian jet, but like a fighter or something like that. And so my job was to make sure that there was 24-hour a day coverage 7 days a week. And so that's why I was the planner for all the missions there. And I would plan all the AC-130 receivings, and, whenever F-22s or whatever would get gas. And so I did that. And I remember coming back from the chow hall one day, and I felt like I had broken my right foot. I don't know what the problem was, but I thought I'd fractured something in my right foot. I played basketball like maybe every other day while I was there. I was like, I probably have a stress fracture, but like it was a big ass fucking military boot, and I was like, it was a flight, it's felt on the top, and it's just big olive boot. And I remember thinking, well, I could probably support myself wearing this big ass boot, and I'm fine, and I'll just put like a pad on it or whatever. But I'm sure it's like a small stress fracture. I get back to Wichita, Kansas. I was my second base, which was McConnell Air Force Base in Wichita, and I remember I couldn't walk. I got off the airplane, and it was nothing. I'd never experienced anything like it. It was 122 degrees when I left. When I was at Al Dhafra Air Force, or Al Udeid Air Force Base in Doha, Qatar, and I got back to Wichita, Kansas, sometime in the winter, and the wind chill was like negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and so I went from 122 to negative 20 in the course of like less than a day. Yeah. And my right foot, I couldn't walk at all. Like I literally had to get crutches, and I was so confused what happened. So I go to the doctor when I get back to Wichita, and the doctor says, you have what's called, he thought it was plantar fasciitis. And then they were like, well, it looks like you have an arthritic condition that's happened in your foot, and we don't understand what's going on. So we're going to do some tests. And also my scalp started turning red. You can still see it like that. And they went and did some tests and found out that I have psoriatic arthritis. It's the same thing that Phil Mickelson has, the professional golfer. Yep. He does advertisements for psoriatic arthritis. So I got it, I was 30 years old, I think, at the time when I got it, 30, somewhere around there, 31. And so they had to give me a steroid in order to make the pain go down. And then they started giving me this stuff called, oh God, I can't remember. It's a medication they give for cancer patients. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, well, yeah, we have to give it to you because your immune system's attacking itself. And then they told me, is like, wow, you also can never fly again. And so I held off on taking the medication. I did a couple more instructor flights in 2009. And then I'll put in my paperwork for retirement. And it was going to take about 2 years. And those 2 years I got to work in counterintelligence, and it was fucking awesome. I loved the fact that I got to do it. The stuff I learned in counterintelligence is stuff that I still use today. You saw the thing where, like I had a client get robbed the other day, and I was going over things like, how we don't give people our passwords. We like two-factor authentication with our phones. I don't like to use the Face ID thing because you could be asleep and the Face ID thing might work. Some girl might crack into your phone. We just started going over all these safety measures on like things like, for instance, for me, whenever I go out with a girl, I post it the next day or like a week later, because I don't need people knowing where I am at any one time. These are counter intel things that I learned when I was in the military. And so I teach the clients that and also like never leave lascivious messages. Don't leave these voice notes. Here's how you make things disappear. You can use, WhatsApp, whatever. I'm very, very much about keeping my private life, my super private life, private. And so I did that for a while, and man, that was there's a ton of stuff that I learned, from being in the military, from doing intel, from dealing with the good and the bad leadership. And then I probably, the other thing that changed my life was survival school. Air Force survival school is probably mentally the most draining. It's not physically the most draining. I'd say that what the Marines have to go through is worse than what we have to go through, because they can break bones and stuff like that.
Right.
What we have to go through is they keep putting you in these impossible situations where like they keep trying to get you to rat out your friends and all this kind of stuff. And it's really bad. So because I was in Air Force survival school, they had locked me in this box, and that sometimes they may or may not put insects in there with you. And they have all these screaming noises, and they're like, you're just locked in this box for like several hours. Then they pull you out of the box, and they put you in a chair, and then they start interrogating you. Sometimes they may or may not hit you. And while they were interrogating me, poof, they start pulling out pictures of me at the strip club, because one of the class before mine, they snitched on me and told the interrogators everything about me. And so I'm just like, what the fuck, bro? This guy had every data on me. that he got off of
Wow.
Facebook. No, it was MySpace. This is 2004, so it's MySpace. And so, yeah, man, it was that was pretty that was pretty nuts. But
Yeah.
getting out of survival school, 17 days of survival school at Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane, Washington, that was the thing where, like, after that, no matter what I was going through, I was like, yo, man, whatever this is, how bad this problem is it worse than survival school? And I'm like, it's
Right.
not. All right, I'm good. Right.
Right.
I always think, is this worse than eating crickets? Is this worse than eating the lungs and the liver of a rabbit that you just cooked right in front of you? Is this
Mm.
worse than sleeping on the ground? Is this worse than taking a shit in the dirt? Is this worse than any of that stuff? Dude, my hands, like your hands, when you're out there and you're like cutting stuff and like it's freezing cold, your hands get to the point where like your fingers get numb. And when you have
Yeah.
to carry the 70-pound rucksack, your inside of your feet are totally numb. The inside half of your toe, your big toe, is
Yeah.
totally numb for several days because of the kit. You're
Mm.
trying to counterbalance a 70-pound rucksack. And
Yeah.
so when I remember getting out of that and just thinking, yeah, there's nothing in the world I can't do. I remember getting out of that and going up and talking to girls in a club and just like having no fucking fear. I'm like, whatever you're going to do to me is not as bad as eating ants. It's not as bad as eating fucking ants. It's not as bad as
Yeah.
going 2 days without water. It's not that bad.
2 days without water? What was that? Tell me. I want to know. I want to know about that. What was that like? 2 whole days without water.
It was very little water, but there
Okay.
was a group of us that they actually, as an experiment, let them go a full day without water. And it was crazy watching them because they're like their lips were all chapped, and then you would ask them questions and they just didn't know, like they couldn't answer your question. It was like really weird. It was almost like oxygen deprivation to watch them go a couple of days without water. It was pretty nuts.
Mm.
I probably was like a day and a half we didn't have any water, something like that. Because
Mhm.
you have to, and by the way, you're drinking creek water and you have to put iodine tablets in the creek water. And when you drink it, you have to spit out the dirt. Like you try to sift out all the dirt before you do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, those were good times. I will say the one advantage is being a navigator. I was the guy who got to read the map for our little group, and we never got lost one time. I knew exactly where we were the whole time because I could look up at the sun.
Yeah.
Shout out to the flat earthers who don't believe in that. But yeah, that's why I did that. But yeah, my time in the military was it was very rewarding. Of all the decisions I've ever made, it's probably the best decision I ever made was to join the Air Force as an officer. And then to get out, I got out at the right time. I was medically retired in February. So I got in February 21st, 04, and I got out February 28, 2011. And I remember getting out and just starting an incredible adventure, starting off with the Dallas Mavericks winning the NBA championship, which was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
They did win that year.
I was living in Dallas when that happened. And then moving to LA and then Vegas at the same time. And then eventually just full-time Vegas after that, probably 2012, 2013.
Okay. What did you do? Like, what was your first, I guess, job, or what did you do first when you really got out the military?
I found so I was taking a couple of acting gigs and I was going on a bunch of reality TV shows. I went on like 4 different shows
Mhm.
when I first got to LA. But what actually did it for me was there's a woman named Karen Bruton from Tennessee, and she had a certain trading style where she would sell 5 Delta puts in SPX. It's hard for those. Any of you have any understanding of how stock options work? She was basically
Yep.
selling
Calls and
far
puts.
out of the
Yep.
money stock options. She $5 wide or $50 wide, and they would be like 5 Delta. And she was making somewhere like low end 30%, high end like 56% return per
Mm.
year on her money. And so I just studied
That's
exactly
incredible.
what she did. And I did it for a while, and I was getting I was getting outrageous returns every year. Doing that until the Corona crash happened, and her and I both got hammered by that. But that's
Yeah.
what I did for a living from maybe 2013 until 2020. I was a stock option seller. I got hired by a firm to sell stock options in 2016. I still work for them, Continental Financial Capital,
Nice.
and I
Okay.
sell stock options for them. So yeah, that's what I did for a living. And then I was here in Vegas, and I started throwing these just outrageous events with this other guy, this nightlife group, and they got better and better and better over time. He got mixed up with some legal stuff, and I kind of cut ties with him, and he's kind of nowhere to be found now. And I kept throwing these bigger and bigger parties. Eventually, I got like my dream job, which was to host the bikini competition at Wet Republic. When I moved to Vegas, I know some people are like, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a politician. I went to the bikini competition at Wet Republic, and I was like, I want to host this competition more than anything in the world. And it took me about 10 years before I got the job. I remember I first I went there in 2011. It was 2021. I finally got the gig there, and it was the best thing they've ever done. Like literally, I had 2-3 times as many girls as they've ever had come compete, and it was just absolutely incredible. They paid me really well to do it, and I'm going to do it again this year. But it was like one of the most fun things I've ever done. And from that, there were several other things. I started hosting Swimsuit USA, and I started hosting the Black Tape Projects, their bikini competition in Jamaica. So we started doing that on a regular basis. So it was bikini competitions, there were charity events, and then there was like nightclub outings. I would do all three of those things. The charity events were probably the most common. So that's Babes in Toyland and Teatro, stuff like that. And so I was doing those intermittently. And I'll tell you, the turning point for everything was I was going to be a camera guy at the 2015 Maxim Halloween party in Beverly Hills. And the girl who was supposed to host the red carpet didn't show up. Her name is Caitlin O'Connor. She's dating Joe Maglione. Caitlin O'Connor is dating Joe Maglione. Joe Maglione he was the werewolf in the show True Blood, the really good looking Jack werewolf. They're dating. Caitlin and I are still good friends, but because she didn't show up that day, they ended up asking me to host the carpet. And from there, I met the guy who hosted Babes in Toyland, asked me to host his event. So I hosted the December 2015 one. And then the guy who hosted Paradise Challenge was there. He asked me to host his events. And then from there, that's where everything took off. So from Paradise Challenge and Babes in Toyland, then I was hosting a bikini competition at Wet Republic. And that's where I met Crystal Hefner, who's Hugh Hefner's widow. And she invited me to the Playboy Mansion. So I started going to Playboy parties. And then from there, probably 2017, Bilzerian, or 2019, Bilzerian was getting out of his relationship, and then he got the house at 10979 Shalon Road in Bel Air, and then they had those massive parties, those Ignite parties, and then I started recruiting for the Ignite parties, and I started bringing like 60, 70 girls. So it got to the point where like I was showing up to every big party in Los Angeles and Las Vegas with somewhere between 20 and 60 girls. For one of Dan's parties, I showed up with 90. I showed up with 90 girls. And so I started doing that on a regular basis, and I started to get a reputation for that. And then 2019, December 2019, I was consistently getting asked. I was not coaching anybody. I had been coaching since 2008, but I had not been paid to coach. It was completely for free. I was just doing this for fun. Certain companies would fly me out to different places to either be like, I was an approach coach for a while for Mystery, for the Venusian Arts. And there was like RSD would have me come speak on stage at different stuff like that. And then I was also friends with Ty Lopez. And then finally in 2019, the end of 2019, I decided, okay, I'm going to try to do this for a living. And it was really, that's when we created Men of Action, the first iteration of Men of Action. That was December 2019. And when we did that, it was really interesting to me. The guys who when people who pay attention. That's I can't remember if it was Ryan Stewman who told me that. People who pay attention. And so when I had paying clients, I was able to get way better results for my clients. And I started doing that. And what I was trying to sell and what people had been asking me forever is like, Michael, how is it that you end up hosting this bikini competition? Why is it that you're always surrounded by all these hot girls? Why is it that you do this consistently? And the ones who knew me knew that, there's no money involved. I'd never pay any girls to come around. They're like, oh, these girls are all hookers. It's like, no, because you see women who are attractive, you think they're hookers. Because that's how your brain works, because you don't know any other way. The girls who are hookers in Vegas, they tell you they're hookers. Those girls are not hookers. So it's very clear who the hookers are in Vegas. There's no DL hookers here. They're all out in the open. It's not like other cities. So I would throw these insane parties that would just be like huge. And then I would throw these big bikini competitions, and people are like, Michael, how are you doing this? And so I basically made Men of Action, taking the 25 years from graduating from college to basically the pandemic. And I condensed it down into like a 100 module course, a little bit more than 100 modules. And then I started doing weekly calls and then one-on-one calls with my clients. And we did that for a couple of years, and the company just quadrupled in size after the first year. It just took off. We were doing six figures from day one because people had wanted me to start a course for so long. So I remember the very first month we did six figures, and we've never not done any like we've never even, I don't think we've done less than mid six figures in several years. So like that's
And
and often
that's on a
higher than that
monthly basis.
on a monthly basis. Yeah.
Man.
Because of all the people that want to, join the company. And that's why I'm like so proud to be a part of this. And, now the
Hmm.
company's grown out. There's probably 40 people in total that that work with us or for us. And then my other two business partners. And, just a lot of planning. We're way more concerned with growth. We put pretty much everything we make, we put right back into the company. Yeah, man, so far it's been really, really good. But I've also learned a ton about business that I'm going to probably make a course in the future because
Hmm.
there's this finessing your sales team. There's having setters and closers. There's A/B testing ads. Like, what does that look like? There's what kind of content do you want to create? And there's always this dichotomy where on the one hand, I'm making content that goes viral, and on the other hand, I'm making content where you want good clients. And usually you can't do both. The
Hmm.
content that goes the most viral on social media is victim content where you make victims feel good, like black pill content, feminist content,
Yeah,
content where you hate women, whatever. That kind of stuff does really, really well.
it
My
does.
country's being attacked, your country's oppressing me. That type of
Right.
content goes super viral online. Content that where you're just like teaching people self-improvement, that content doesn't go super viral. It doesn't go
It's
super viral.
funny you
Unless,
say that. It's really
yeah.
funny you say that because I've said that to people even about like Fresh and Fit, like all of
Mhm.
the controversial, takes or short form videos, the clips about, Myron talking to girls and this 304 that. But I'm like, I don't know how many people ever tune into like Money Mondays and stuff like that. Like the numbers are like drastically different. You know what I mean? When they're talking about real
Yeah.
estate and how to do this and how to do that, just to your point.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of a different, a huge dichotomy, a huge change between those two things. But hold on a second. Where's the thing? There it is. Uh, I learned a ton uh, from those situations, and there's this massive dichotomy between all the people that I worked with in Las Vegas and all the people I work with in the military, and just kind of seeing the difference. And I'm able
Hmm.
to sort between the two. I have fun with the fun people, and I do business with the business people, and the two
Right.
definitely don't mix. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
My business
Yeah. No.
partners
Yeah.
my business partners go to bed around sunset, and I go to bed around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. We live very different lifestyles. My one of my business partners, he's in his 20s, he's about to get married, and then I'm in my 40s and I'm dating multiple 22-year-olds. Like that, we're very different lifestyles. But it's I've just learned, okay, this works for these people, this works for other people, and you should just kind of figure out what it is that you want to do for your life. We try to be very
Yeah.
non-judgmental. And by the way, Fresh and Fit are coming on the show tomorrow. They're coming on
Wow.
Access Vegas tomorrow night. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yep.
awesome. Wow. You said a mouthful. You actually answered a couple of the questions I actually had
Yeah,
for you, which
for
is
sure.
awesome. It's awesome. So let me ask you this. So business wise, and I guess even I would say skill set wise, a lot of what you do has to come from networking and like
Yeah.
being around people and talking. Like just talk about, I guess, the skills it really takes to do a lot of what you have been able to build.
So we go over we go over every one of these skills in the course. But
Mhm.
I will say we start off by saying connector, suggester, content creator. So my course is basically a networking course. People join the
Okay.
course because they want to see like dating content, but it's actually a networking course first. And we teach
Yeah.
people connector, suggester, content creator. So connector, I'm the one connecting people. Like if you don't know, like even I'm always introducing people to other people at parties. Most of my
Mhm.
guy friends meet their girlfriends through me. Most of my female friends meet their boyfriends through me.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm always connecting, suggesting. So I'm the one suggesting books, movies, nightclubs, television shows, and restaurants. They come to me when people are like, hey, I have these stunning girls, like huge models that hit me up, be like, hey, Michael, I'm looking for a new book. Hey, Michael, I want to go on stage at Access for Chainsmokers. Can you help me out? Like they know because I suggest, they see me as like a subject matter expert in certain areas. And then content creator. Girls, if you guys have been out on a regular basis, women are, influencers in the wild. They're taking videos and photos of all their food, right?
Mhm.
They get dressed
Yep.
and take pictures for half an hour. Whenever they have a
Bless you.
cute outfit, they take They take pictures of it for an hour. So I'll go to dinner with a bunch of girls. It'll be a comp dinner. And I'm the one actually leading the charge, taking pictures of everything. I don't even post these pictures. But what I don't want to do is get out of phase with what's going on with, this younger generation. I do things because they work. I actually also do like social media and I like nightclubs. I'm very rare for a guy in his 40s, but I really enjoy that. So those are some of the skill sets. The other skill sets is I treat them all the same, make them talk about themselves. So like some of the people that I looked up to before I became a content creator were like Brendan Carter, Greg O'Gallagher. I didn't meet Wes until later. Wes Watson. I know he's going through some controversy, but I love Wes. Ryan Stewman, Dan Fleischman, Dan Bilzerian, Fresh and Fit, Rollo Tomasi, Justin Waller, Andrew Tate, and then just other guys like Aaron Clary, Neil Patel, Ryan Stewman, Cole Gordon, Jeremy Lee Minor. These are all guys. Adam Sosnick. These were guys that I looked up to, but I didn't know. Brad Lee obviously is really huge. Brad Lee and Ryan Pineda and Ty Lopez. And so I was like looked up to these guys as like, as seeing like attainable levels of status and building businesses basically from nothing. And I became friends with every one of those guys that I just mentioned over time, and to where they come out to my birthday party. But the reason why is because I treat them all the same and make them talk about themselves. There's a way whenever I go see somebody that I admire, I don't fanboy over them. And this is something we have to teach men, to not fanboy when you want to network, and also not fanboy when you see, oh my God, you're my favorite model. I follow all of your stuff. I subscribe to your OnlyFans. Like I can't imagine how quickly her vagina must dry up when you say I watch all your stuff on OnlyFans. She doesn't even watch the stuff on her OnlyFans. She has a business. She has somebody who does that for her. So it was just like certain techniques that I learned. And then we go over charisma, breaking rapport. We go over competency, humor. We go over relevancy, access to scarce networks, access to scarce resources, and access to scarce locations. And then we go over concepts and pre-selection. Pre-selection helps you with men and women, meaning like when I show up to parties with a lot of girls are curious who I am, and it can spark attraction. When I show up to conferences and like self-help stuff with a bunch of girls, all the guys there want to meet me and want to network with me. So that's what I found works really well for me. So there's a bunch of different skill sets, but I teach all of them in my program, and they worked out really well. I've been able to network with some amazing. I just can't believe when I look at some of the people I've had on my podcast, where it's like Dr. David Buss, or if it was Jay Cutler or Flex Lewis, like that. The fact that some of these guys have come on my show, BJ Baldwin, that have come on my show. Home Math has been on there. It's been really, really incredibly fortunate for me becoming friends with Justin Waller. It was actually Andrew Tate who introduced me to Justin Waller. Being able to network with these people and just being like deep in this space, and then still also I'm still close friends with Owen Cook and Mystery, and just like understanding all these different perspectives and being able to, I'm almost like a connector. Often what'll happen is like some of the big interviews you've seen with Patrick Bet David or Saucecast or Fresh and Fit or whatever podcast or whatever, I've actually connected the people together so that they would go on those shows. Dan's a Project, or like a lot of them, I was the one who connected them. And so that's a networking thing. Getting people on podcast. I just met these two really, really successful commercial real estate guys at a party on Sunday. And the first thing I told them was like, have you guys been on Ryan Pineda's podcast? Have you guys been on Iced Coffee Hour with Graham Stephan? And I was like, no. I was like, well, you guys were already, because they're published in like the New York Times. I was like, I can get you guys on those shows in 2 seconds. Just let me know. I'll get you guys on there. So I'm always trying to, with women, I'm trying to help them often with their social media. Like a lot of girls, I've helped them start their own podcasts. With guys, I'm getting them on different podcasts. I'm helping them with the social media. So there's always something I'm helping people with, create content, etc. And because of that, people want to network. So my whole mantra is, if I continue to solve problems for people and ask nothing in return, my life becomes easier. And that's probably the easiest way to express what I've been able to do for the last 25 years. I keep solving problems for other people. I ask for nothing in return, and my life just gets progressively easier because of it.
Solve problems for other people, ask for nothing in return. Yeah, I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna just be honest with you. That's a big one. That's a gem. That's a big gem. Talk about the Michael Sartain podcast. Talk about what really, like, everything you pretty much have said in this interview all culminated in everything you know. But I guess just talk about like what made you initially like decide to start it.
We had already started MOA. I was going into this place called Sticky Paw Studios to be a co-host with this guy named Brian on a certain podcast, but this podcast was about politics. I read a lot of audiobooks. I try to read 10 physical pages per night of a physical book, and then I read, then I listen to maybe 2 hours of audiobooks at like double speed, and every day. And so we would come and we'd have these discussions, and I'd be bringing up stats, and it's gotten even worse now because I have Perplexity and ChatGPT, so I can bring up like massive numbers of stats whenever I go on people's podcasts. And so I was doing this guy, Brian, his show for a couple of weeks, and the studio said, hey, man, you really need to start your own podcast. And I was like, I'm not really sure if I want to do this. And they were going to give me the studio time for free. And it was a beautiful studio. What happened was a girl that I used to date went and lied to one of the sponsors of an event I was hosting and got me kicked off of that event. And wow. Do you remember the whole controversy with Joe Rogan with the N-word? How they had this whole thing where Joe Rogan was basically, he was basically repeating things that Paul Mooney had said. And then he was saying the N-word, but he wasn't saying it out of hatred. And a bunch of black comedians like stood up for him and said, hey, we support Joe Rogan, etc. And then that was the end of it. And I was like, because Joe Rogan has a 3-hour podcast, you can't really take him out of context. And so because this girl, like, honestly, this girl had cost me a job, and I was so angry about it that I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this podcast. And if she's out there watching me, thank you, honey. You've made me millions of dollars. I started the podcast initially, and it was the female fighter. It was the playmate versus the fighter pilot. So I had an F-18 fighter pilot and a former Playboy playmate, and I was like contrasting their two lifestyles or whatever. And that was what the show was going to be. I was going to have like porn stars and doctors on at the same time. That's what it was. And by the way, that's kind of what Access Vegas is now. You'll notice half the girls on there are like mothers married with master's degrees, and the other half of the girls are like OnlyFans girls. And so I started doing the show. It blew up. By the 10th episode, Bilzerian had come out with his new book. He came on my podcast. And from there, the podcast just blew up. 34th episode, I had, I think I had Dr. Buss on like number 34. And then the podcast just getting better and better. It was right before that I had made a full-throated decision. One of my clients is a professor at Harvard. He teaches in the economic school at Harvard. And he gave me Dr. Buss's textbook as a gift. The textbooks are like $300-400, and he gave me one of the like a used textbook as a gift. And I put it behind my head whenever I was doing the podcast, the Evolutionary Psychology, New Science of Mind textbook, the 6th edition. And from there, I made up my mind. I was like, this podcast is now about evolutionary psychology, because every single aspect of life comes from is a derivative of what humans have become due to natural selection. And so that's kind of like the ethos of what the podcast became. And it slowly grew over time. So it was dating, finance. We went over the only stuff that wasn't evolutionary psychology is like the physics stuff that I would go over in the podcast. I had one guy come on and we discussed quantum mechanics for like an hour. So we would do all these episodes. And then I finally at 129, I took a break. 129 episodes, I took a break, and I haven't done the podcast in a couple months because I started using the DJI Osmo, and I started interviewing people while walking down the street. And so that's kind of been the sort of replacement for the Michael Sartain podcast. Those videos, people like them. They're also a lot shorter, and people have really tuned in. But we are going to go back to doing the Michael Sartain podcast. That's why the studio that I built here behind me, that's what I built so that we could start doing it virtually like this. But the podcast, the number one benefit I've gotten from it, besides growing the business, is the podcast actually educated me on different people's lifestyles. I learned so much. I got basically a master's degree. Imagine interviewing 129 people, 2 hours each, 3 hours each, over the course of 2.5 years. Imagine you're getting a master's degree worth of knowledge from that. And then additionally, it helped me network. So there's people like, I probably wouldn't be as good friends with Brad Lee right now if I didn't have a show. Right. But because I have a show and Brad has a show, we became close. We became very close. Me and Dan, I've helped Bilzerian with his Sigma Society course. That wouldn't have happened if I didn't have a podcast. So the podcast was probably the best networking tool I've ever used. And the other thing is, it's a great opener. I go up to people who have no interest. They can't come on my podcast because they're at a prestigious law firm. They're going through a divorce. They have a top secret government clearance, whatever. But because I can still ask them, hey, would you like to come on my podcast? And it starts a line of dialogue that causes us to become friends. Just like, see guys who wear the Rolex. I just bought a Sky Dweller. Rolex. And only reason I bought it, women do not give a shit about your Rolex. Only reason why I bought it was because it started conversations with other, it's a blue face schedule. So it started conversations with other people. And so that's, that was and I speak at Ty Lopez events, and there's all these huge influencers there, that these e-com giants that go to that thing. And it was just a great way for me to start, conversations with them. And so that's essentially what the podcast did. The podcast always gave me a way for me to have big guests on. And then whenever they'd come into town, like one of the last episodes I did was with Casey Zander, and I took Casey out partying that whole weekend, and became, pretty good friends with him because of that. So that's the podcast has been incredibly beneficial for me.
Yeah, I'm listening to you now, just, with the podcast and how it naturally allowed you to network with people.
Yeah.
For me really getting rolling again with my podcast, it just has me thinking, my wheels are turning as I'm listening to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What do you find that men struggle with the most when it comes to dating, especially when 2024 ended, 25 really just started? It'll be March Saturday, but like, what do you really find right now men struggle with the most in dating?
Yeah. So when we say men, there are two kinds of men. This is real hard for guys to grasp. If you are a really good looking guy on social media and you have access to, like I said, really cool places, you're a really good looking guy, or you're very famous, or you're very rich, those guys are not having any trouble when it comes to dating. Those guys have never had more women coming after them because of social media. Like the discrepancy between the amount of women that these top 20% of guys are getting in comparison to the other 80% has never been higher. It's you. If you are in this top 20%, you've never had more women in your DMs. You've never had the level of success that you have now. When we say men are struggling, we're talking about the bottom 80% of men. So there's three genders. There's high status men, there's women, and there's low status men. Those are three different genders. They are not low status men and high status men have almost nothing to do with each other. When women complain about men, they're complaining about high status men. When we talk about men suffering, we're discussing low status men. But all we hear is men, and that's where the confusion comes from. Okay. Low status men, the number one thing they're having to do is compete with high status men in an unfamiliar context. So low status men have mid-tier social media, or they have no social media at all. They're going out to bars. They're drinking excessively. They have poor information or habits when it comes to diet, exercise, their drinking and drug habits, etc., and poor information and habits when it comes to spending habits, credit, etc., and income. And because of that, what's happened is they're so far behind the other guys. So where it used to be, if I was living in just like Waco, Texas in 1985, I'm only compared to the other women. I'm only compared to the other men that woman comes encounter with every day. There's no internet. There's maybe stuff she sees on TV, but those people are way off in Hollywood. She doesn't think about those people. So I'm basically in comparison with other men in Waco. And so I don't really have I have competition, but it's not that much competition. And if I'm a guy who's like an 8 out of 10, I'm probably going to get a girl who's an 8 out of 10. That's generally the way it works. What's happened now is that girl now, she doesn't even consider this girl who's like a 9 or a 10 who lives in Waco. She wouldn't even consider dating a guy in Waco. Or if she is, she's dating like a cardiologist or a fucking a personal injury attorney who's making like outrageous sums of money. And she's being flown to parties. She's going to Los Angeles. She's partying in Vegas at least twice a year. She's going to Coachella. She's going to Burning Man. She's going to Art Basel, etc. And if she's not going to those things, she's at least has friends who are going to them, and she's seeing videos and images of them. And the guys who are taking part of that top 20%, the guys who are taking place of the bigger, better deal. So these are the guys on stage at nightclubs, at Coachella, driving the Ferrari, skydiving, traveling to Ibiza. All these guys, in comparison to the men that are around her, these guys stand out so much more that she's giving her attention to those guys. I know I get hit up by girls constantly saying, I'm coming to Vegas, take care of me, blah, blah, blah. And they just leave their wedding ring and their morals at the airport when they get here. And so what's happened is that bottom 80% of men are getting drowned out. 80% of men on dating apps are deemed to be unattractive. Men are matching with 6 out of every 1,000 right swipes they get. Women, by the way, 100 out of every 1,000 right swipes. So it's about 17 to 1 better, right? That women are doing. And there's, depending on which app, there's between 4 and 1. So 4 guys for every 1 girl, or up to like Tinder, which is 9 guys for every 1 girl on these apps.
Seriously?
And then at nightclubs. Yeah. And then on nightclubs, At nightclubs, it's getting pretty bad where girls are just not going out as much. So there's 5 new nightclubs per week have been shutting down recently in London. And the reason why is because attractive women don't want to go out as much because they don't need to. They get their validation through social media and through OnlyFans. I was reading this one stat, which is mind blowing. There's 1.5 million female content creators in the United States on OnlyFans. 1.5 million. For those of you who don't know, there's only 180 million women in the entire country. And if we don't count women like say over 40 or under 18, we're talking about 2-3% of women in the United States, like attractive women.
Yeah. All
That are on
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. It's just the numbers are absolutely crazy. So it's affected the entire market. And the men at the bottom are the ones who are suffering. The men at the top, they're getting more attention than ever. So that's basically what's happened. So the trick is you need to show as much status with as low perceived effort as possible. And the way to do that is through social media. So I'm not saying you need social media to be good with women. What I am saying is that you need social media so that you can meet as many women as possible with using as little effort as possible. And I highly recommend Instagram over any dating app. Just getting your Instagram really good I could go out with 2 girls a night, 7 days a week, and it would not be difficult at this point because of, the attention that I garner on social media. And I'm not that famous, right? I have plenty of reels I put out that don't even get 100 likes, right? I'm not that famous. And so what I teach in my program is how to get to like a level 1 or 2 level of status. Level 10 being like The Rock, Cristiano Ronaldo. Level 5 being like a big time streamer. You know what I'm saying? 7 or 8 would be like Joe Rogan. And then like a level 0 would be like a janitor. Level 1 or 2 is where I want to get you to, where basically you go out every night and everyone knows your name. Every time you go to a restaurant, the chef comes out and greets you. It's like these low levels of status, right? It's like, guys who have billboards in your city. Like they're not super famous, but they're famous enough to where every hot girl in the city is aware of their face. That's what I teach guys to have. And it's very simple, requires little to no money in order to do it. And then once you do it, then basically you're just picking from 50 or 60 girls who want to date you. You're picking which one you want to date. And it's just you basically take dating and turn it on its head. Basically, you become the scarce resource as a man. You start hosting events where there's 7 or 8 girls for every guy. It takes very little time. I teach you how to train a VA to do almost all the work for you. And that's basically what Men of Action has become over the last 4 years.
Man, okay. Well, with all of that said, in general, what do you think of the dating market nowadays? Like, what do you think of it?
There's so many desperate men. They're basically fueling the financial needs and the validation needs of these group of women who are not interested in those men. And then so basically women are finding men to simp on them, to spend money on them, and then using that to buy time and to like live their life, pay their rent, etc., so that they can date the men they actually want to date, who are in the top 20% who are not interested in them. So the high status men are not interested in most women, a few women, but they're not interested in most women. The women are not interested in low status men, but the low status men are interested in all women, and all women are interested in the high status men. So it's kind of like,
so
that's how the scale works. Yeah. So you can say, like, are you on a regular basis when you go out in social situations, are people recognizing you? Do you have occasionally women creeping into your DMs being like, hey, I'm coming in town, can you show me where to go? Just little like signs of interest. Is that happening to you on a regular basis? If it is, then you're probably in that top 20% of men. You go on and maybe you're just really good looking guy and you go on dating apps and you get nothing but matches. If you're one of those guys, you don't need to listen to me. You're not having any trouble. It's the other 95% of men that are having trouble in these situations. For those guys, I teach them how to level up every single part of their life that generates attraction with women. And so because of that, they become more attractive. I don't think you need to sleep with hundreds of women to get good at dating, but I do think you need to have hundreds of women want to sleep with you. And so that's basic. That's kind of what I teach, along with the networking, communication, and dating stuff in the course. That's what I try to get, in leadership stuff that I teach in the course. That's what I try to get guys to understand are those concepts. And when you do, one of the things that's really crazy is a lot of guys think that, I teach the social circle game, I teach the networking, they think it takes a lot of time. It actually takes less time. Like, I build a network while I sleep by using IG story. It's very simple. I generate attraction with women by using close friends list. I parse out photos over the course of several. I'll go to one event, I'll take hundreds of photos, and I'll slowly post those photos over the course of weeks. So I did one night of work, and I got hundreds of photos from it. So it's like very, very much what's it called? Efficiency, force multiplier. That's what we say in the military. I just do very little work on social media, and because of it, I get outrageously high returns. And it's very hard, especially for a guy like me who's in my 40s, a former U.S. military officer. Guys like me generally don't get involved in social media. We think it's gay. We think it's fucking it's lame. I'm just a whore to what works. And I have so many clients that are in their 50s and 60s who've been dating incredibly beautiful women just because of what I taught them. That or I've had so many. I have my client. Well, I have one client. He's like 5 feet tall, and he was talking about another super hot girl he ended up sleeping with in Los Angeles. We just had a call about it, and he was going over step by step, showing exactly what happened. And this has happened to him several times before. He's 5 feet tall, dude. He's 5 feet tall. By the way, if you don't believe me,
Crazy.
MOA.com, MOAmentoring.com/testimonials, you'll literally see the 5 foot guy with the girls on MOAmentoring.com/testimonials. And it's just like, it's just one of these crazy things where it's like all the black pill ideologies of my face is not handsome, I'm Indian, women don't like me, whatever. We just crush them. We don't defeat them. We obliterate those objections and those limiting beliefs in the program, and it's just been absolutely fantastic for us since then. But it's difficult because I don't allow any victimhood in my program. I don't allow any excuses or any victimhood, and so because of that, I think a lot of people resent us, because what we do is we take your victim mindset and we destroy it. And so because of that, a lot of people don't like our program. A lot of people get very angry with my content because of that.
Well, I mean, it's important to not be a victim, because nothing can happen if you're a victim. So it makes sense, because I think the majority of people, I think you would agree, the majority of people, especially men, are victims.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what the bottom 80% of men are, not only being victimized, they're also choosing a victim mentality. I just don't choose a victim. I was in that bottom 80%. I'd say when I was in the military, I was in the bottom 80%. When I was in that bottom 80%, I chose to not be a victim because of things that, because of Power of Now, because of understanding the subtle art of not giving a fuck. There were certain books that I read that explained to me, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm choosing to not be a victim. And over time, I just decided if someone's doing better than me, I never talk shit about them. I just try to learn what they're doing that I'm not doing to get better. And it's hard to do so. It really is. It's difficult. When you see someone who like you're interested in a girl and a guy comes up and scoops your girl, instead of being pissed at him or thinking that she's a whore, what you need to do instead is saying, okay, what are the mechanisms he used to generate attraction to get this girl? Can I use those same mechanisms while at the same time eliminating any bad habits that he may have in accordance to like drugs, alcohol, or diet? Can I avoid those bad habits while at the same time generating attraction? And that's basically what I did. Is I went and reverse analyzed. I deconstructed what all those people, reverse engineered what all those successful guys with women were doing. And then I just put it into a 100 module course.
Yeah. You took the emotions out of it. You just paid attention to the actual details. Well, it's something he's doing that's getting the results that I'm not doing. So what is he doing?
Yeah. I mean, when I go online and I see some of this incel content or some of this black pill content, and I see like 25,000 views, 50,000 views, I'm like, what he's saying is objectively wrong. Why is he getting so many views? And then I realized, it's because he gives victims a safe place to feel validated in their victimhood. By the way, and this is way off topic, that's what flat earth is. I know a lot of people are like, there's flat earthers out there. There are flat earthers. Flat earthers are basically people with a victim mentality. They basically think the government's lied to you, the world's lied to you, but because they've lied to you, that's why I'm not successful. It's not because I'm lazy. It's not because I'm dumb. It's not because I made poor decisions in my life when it comes to diet, when it comes to drugs and alcohol, when it comes to exercise. That's not the reason why. It's because of the Illuminati. It's because of Project Paperclip and NASA and all this. Like one of the biggest displays of victimology is flat earth. Another one is called black pill. Another one is incel. Another one is hardcore feminism. All these things, the reason why they grow so quickly, BLM was actually one too. Not like Black Lives Matter. I'm not talking about the movement of Black Lives Matter. I'm talking about the organization. I'm talking about the organization that was stealing money. They were basically using victimology. In fact, of the two political parties, I'd say Democrats use victimology in general at a greater rate than I'm part of protected class, you're part of a privileged class. So victimology, when you sell victimhood on YouTube, you get a lot of followers. The problem is if you sell a self-help course or if you sell any kind of coaching, you can't sell victimology and then also sell a course for improvement. You can't do both, or you're going to get a ton of refunds, right?
Yeah.
So like victimology, it's like another guy who sells victimology, or some of these women panderers like Chris GQ Perry or Will Hitchens or Justin Baldoni. Like these guys, they basically sell victimology for women. It's not women's bad choices why they're in these bad relationships or single mothers. It's always the man's fault. So like that kind of stuff, you're because you're selling victim. The View is a great show where they sell victimology. There's a ton of it, but basically all of MSNBC, just when you sell a space for victims to feel safe, then you're going to grow astronomically. Because of me, I not only do I not sell a space for victims to feel safe, I crush their victimology and I destroy their limiting beliefs. Because of that, I'm never going to grow as fast as the victim mindset individuals. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Most conspiracies aren't true. A lot of them are, but most of them aren't. Most conspiracies, people don't believe them because of facts. They believe them because they're victims.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. It makes total sense. Victims aren't really looking for steps to improvement. They're looking for validation as to why they couldn't get better. It was something else. It wasn't me.
Correct. Hey, look, there's new CIA documents that are open to the idea that there was a lab leak, and that's where COVID-19 came from. And if you want to believe that, that's fine. I'm open to the idea.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, because of COVID-19, therefore, that's why I didn't make any money. Because of COVID-19, that's why my wife left me. Because of COVID-19, the pandemic, the plandemic, whatever, that's why I'm fat. And so there's no reason for me to diet. There's no reason for me to start a business because of COVID. Like what's happened is, if it's true or not true, that's a big deal. You know, it really is. I'm not saying it's not significant. The problem is most people who are heavy into this are not into it because they're trying to fix the world. They're heavy into it because they need excuses for why their lives did not turn out the way it is. And there's probably people listening to me right now who are getting very offended who don't even recognize this is what they're doing. This is a subconscious process. You are using this. I know about this conspiracy, the Illuminati, the reptiles that live under Antarctica. I know about this conspiracy, the directed energy weapons started these fires, like whatever you need to, birds are fake, whatever you need to believe in. But the reason why you're doing it is not because you're trying to save the world. The reason why you're doing it is because it allows you to be part of a victimized group. And then therefore you feel safe and wholesome. And you feel like I'm in this safe, wholesome group. That allows me to, feel the people who deny gravity, et cetera, whatever. Oh, I know something that you don't know. And the government's been lying to you. And that's the reason why I'm not rich is because the government and blah, 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 whatever. That's what they say. The government's out to get me. That's why I got those sexual harassment charges. That's why the IRS is coming after me. That's why I'm fat because the government, blah, blah, blah. And so they live their life that way. And my whole thing is if COVID was completely made in a lab, I'm still going to be rich. I'm still going to date stupid, super hot women. I'm still going to be in shape regardless. I'm not going to be a victim because the world is full of conspiracies. Make sense?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there were people that got rich because of COVID. Like selling the mask.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So it's like to say I'm not successful because of COVID. It's like, well, there are people who became successful because of it.
OnlyFans creators became successful.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
There are people who looked at it and said, well, everybody's sitting at home. Why don't I just create content?
Yeah.
So it's like you can make up any scenario in your mind as to why you didn't become, when the truth is you can become. It's just work and steps. I totally agree with that. Okay, last question. We don't have to be done, but the last, I guess, official question I'm gonna ask. I know you sell a course. I'm not trying to give away your course content, but just, I guess, a few steps in general for people who really are looking to build something seriously. Like, I have an idea, I have a concept, I've proven it a little bit or whatever, just a few, I guess, a couple of steps to really, a few suggestions.
Yeah. So we just finished filming these mastery courses or these mastery modules exactly on this topic. And what we went over are the 7 different brand building archetypes that there are. There's 7. And so what we said was podcast, okay, reaction video, direct to camera video. And then we said man on the street video, panel show. And then it was video lifestyle, or I'm sorry, photography lifestyle, and then video recap. Those were the 7 different types. So if I wanted to build by the way, whenever I give a suggestion about one of these 7 archetypes, I'm never there to limit you. I'm only there to inspire you. I never say, well, that wasn't one of the 7 archetypes, so I shouldn't do this. No, it's just that they're just there so that you don't have an excuse. You're not a victim, so that you take action. So the first one is the podcast, which is what you're doing. You're doing podcasts right now. What does that do? That allows you to network with other people. You get used to seeing yourself on camera. Your speaking voice increases, and you start slowly building up, better audio, better video. You start learning more stuff. But the networking is really important. It's a great way to build to build a platform, to build a brand. And then secondly is reaction videos. These are for guys like, I can't get anyone on my podcast. Well, then react to viral videos. Use OBS, so where like the video's down here in the corner, and then you're like looking down in it, and then you're reacting to the video. Those do really well. You get to reuse the viral content, which causes your content to go viral. A lot of great reaction video channels are great on YouTube and on Instagram. Then it's like direct to camera video. This is going to be everyone from like Alex Hormozy. These are the 3 things that you need to do to be a great business in 2025. Versus like also a buddy of mine, FitX Fearless, but he goes, these are 3 signs that you might be ugly, right? So these are all. But it's direct to. I'm just looking direct to camera. I just released my most recent video on YouTube was a direct to camera video, basically explaining how dating apps are destroying men's lives. That was the last direct to camera video I did. Then there's man on the street videos. These are any of you guys who want to get more charismatic or better with women. I highly recommend you do man on the street videos, and don't even post them. Just do them, and then have your coach like look over the videos and be like, hey man, weird vocal tonality. Hey, what's going on? Like weird vocal tonality, weird head movement, fidgety, whatever. You don't see that unless you do man on the street videos. Man on the street videos allows you to walk up to beautiful women, talk to them on camera, and then watch what is your body language, how does your voice sound, like what kind of things do you say to the woman? Do you supplicate, etc., whatever? Do you qualify to her? Is she qualified to you? Frame control, etc. You get to see those live. So I highly recommend man on the street videos, and it's also a great way to go viral. And then panel show, which is the hardest one. It's what I do. Access Vegas, No Fugazi, whatever podcast. But also like Fox and Friends is a panel show. Fresh and Fit is a panel show. There's a bunch of different types of panel shows. We do one called Access Vegas. We also have one called Mode Zero that we do on every once in a while. We're also doing the Manosphere Avengers. I forgot what the name of the show we're doing. Once a month, we're doing a show. These are panel shows. Panel shows can be with men or women. Rich Cooper has a new one called Ladies Night, I believe. These panel shows, they're hard to do because you have to get a bunch of girls to show up, and a lot of times these women are not accountable. But when you get to do them, the great thing about it is you get good at recruiting. You get good. The panel show immediately turns into an event. So tomorrow night after we do the panel show, we have like 14 girls coming on. Immediately, I'm like, ladies, who here wants to go on stage at Zook? And then like say half the ladies walk in. Now I just walk to Zook with 7 hot girls. Immediately I get a comp. Do you understand what I'm saying? So like it can go from panel show to automatically now I have like a social event that I'm doing right afterwards, or we all go to dinner together. And then going back what I said before, the photo lifestyle stuff, probably the best examples of this are going to be like Bulzarian, where it's like he was posting photos that made him more popular, but they were still photos of him in like awesome, candid situations. That's one way to build a brand. And then lastly, the video recap. And so these are really, really great ways to like, we had a party and then here's the review of the party or et cetera, or whatever, just being a videographer like that. Those are kind of the 7 ways that I've seen that are most effective. And then once you do one of those 7 things, then it's clips, collaborations, and cash. So clips, I make short clips. Like we're going to probably make short clips of this interview that we're doing now. Collaboration. So you're collaborating with me. I'm going to collaborate with other people. I have people coming on my podcast. Those are collaborations. And then cash. I pick the ones like the top 10% that are doing well. And then I promote them on Instagram and YouTube so that I get even more traffic to come back on my YouTube. And maybe it's it's as little as $5 or $10 a day that you do that up to like, then later on, like we spend a lot more than that on the promotions of stuff. And then you grow your brand that way. So clips, collaboration, and cash along with those 7 different brand building archetypes.
That's awesome.
I know you probably asked that question to some people and they give like a generic answer, and I like give a specific answer.
Yeah.
I only want to solve people's problems. I'm only interested in solving, actually speaking to the problem, not vagaries. I speak directly to the problem and solve the problem specifically. That's what I teach you to do in my course. That's what I do. When you have a problem, we don't talk about vagaries. We specifically give you answers. like right there on the spot.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I absolutely do. I really appreciate that. Because again, I really want to get my channel better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I started off with some steam, kind of, fell apart a little bit. But yeah, no, I appreciate the direct answers. That's what I appreciate. That's what I
For
want.
sure.
I don't want any fluff because at this point, I mean, that's useless. I'm really about trying to, get the Jamal Batia show to really be like
Of
something
course.
solid. You know what I mean? So yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Oh, this has been great. I mean, we had an hour and 11 minutes. This has been absolutely amazing. I would hope you would be willing to come back on some other time. We
Anytime.
talk again. Thank you so much, man. Mr. Sartain, I really, really appreciate you for your time, man. I really do. You have anything else you want to say before we go?
No, man. Listen, if you cannot replace your girlfriend, you cannot replace your job, and you can't replace your social circle in 15 minutes, you don't have enough abundance. I'm going to teach you to have that level of abundance. When I'm done
Mm.
with you, everyone's going to meet their employees through you. Everyone's going to find their employers through you. Everyone's going to find their boyfriend or girlfriend through you. Everyone's going to find all the recommended. You are going to be the center of the social wheel. You're going to be the hub of the social wheel. Your social circle is going to revolve around you. And because of that, your social circle will get you anywhere, and it will introduce you to anyone, and it will get you anything. The people that I admire the most, they're just one phone call away from me now. Whereas other people are paying, for masterminds that are $10,000 to $100,000. Those same people that you're paying for those masterminds are my friends, because I teach you how to network properly with individuals. And then I also teach you to where whatever city you're in, every attractive woman is at least seeing your face, so that there's mere exposure. So there's no cold approach. They're actually like coming up to you and talking to you. And I teach you how to be an incredible connector, suggester, and content creator, so that you have unlimited options when it comes to your ability to network. Your network is your net worth. The most prevalent throughout history, evolutionary psychology, they've gone over these concepts throughout history. The men who had the best networks had the highest access to resources and highest sexual selection. And that's basically what I teach you. I teach you concepts from natural selection and evolutionary psychology, and I convert it into everyday techniques.
Wow. Wow, man. What a way to close an interview.
Appreciate
What
it,
a
man.
way to
By the way,
close
check
an
us out.
interview.
Check me out on Instagram at Michael Sartain, or go to moamentoring.com, and you can go up and you can click on the menu and check out. We just had 191 testimonials, video testimonials. They sit down and talk to me. 191 video testimonials that we just put on the platform. So make sure you go check those out.
And I was definitely going to tell them to check you out and ask you where they can find you at. So I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you said that. And thank you so much again. Until next time, because I'm definitely going to have you on again, man. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right, man. You too.
Take care.